Hey, look, I ran into, ladies and gentlemen, at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a young man I knew way back when named Steve Horne, who directed the Truesports when it first started back in the 1980s, right? 1980, 81?
82 we started.
Well, you started IndyCar, but yeah. When Jim Truman put that super team together, who knew it was a super team, right?
We didn't know at the time.
And you guys show up here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, all turned heads immediately, and then in 1986, put everything together. Bobby Rahal in the cockpit, Steve Horne in the pits, calling the shots. You win the Indianapolis 500. Steve Horne, welcome to the Tim May Show, my man.
But Tim, it's great to see you again. You know, I knew you when you were a Cub reporter at the Columbus Dispatch, and you always treated us very fairly and honestly as a reporter, and you're a great booster for us as well in Columbus.
Well, I mean, as I told you before we started too, you're one of those guys, one of those few people in my career who let me peek behind the curtain quite a bit and learn stuff about what I was covering, not just going, well, he went faster than that guy. You know, you let me understand the whys and whatever. But I want to get with you, number one, what's it like being back here? And then we're going to get into, obviously you live full time for the most part in New Zealand now. We're going to get into some of your projects as much as looking back. But what is it like being back here? Does it rekindle any kind of like thoughts, flames, whatever?
I think it does. You know, Speedway doesn't change. The basics are still the same. You know, I was out there during the car day runs, and it's all the same stuff. They've just got slightly different cars and probably some quicker drivers, but it's all the same. So, you know, you can dream. If I was 10 years younger, I'd say maybe we'll do this again. But it's, you know, the cars are actually the same now. You can go to Delara and buy a car, and it's going to be pretty much the same as your competitor. So it makes it, in some ways, easier, I think, to get to 98%. But it's that last 2% that's really, really hard.
Yeah, they've been sanding and honing on these things for several years. Helio, matter of fact, on Sunday is starting in the same car he won in 2 years ago. And I can just imagine that kind of vehicle in your hands. I mean, the way, you know, you directed things at Truesports, but the way y'all were always looking for those little fine points, right? I mean, would that have been fun for you having the same stuff, or?
Yeah, I think so. Well, we did a lot of Indy Lights as well when we started Tasman, so Indy Lights was kind of similar, but there's a basic rule, Tim. Get the best nut behind the wheel. You know, if you don't do that, then so with Bobby Rahal, we had one of the best nuts behind the wheel.
Yeah.
You know, the driver's still such a key part of it, but the team's got to put it together.
Touch on that a little bit. I mean, you and Bobby, obviously y'all ended up splitting after the 1988 season. He went to Gallus Craco, and you did your own thing with Scott Pruitt, and then later on, you know, with some other drivers, especially when you formed your own Tasman team, and which was totally underrated. Should have won the race here in 1995 with Scott Goodyear, as you well remember. But before we get to that aspect, as you look back on what set Bobby apart in your opinion?
Well, you know, I knew Bobby because actually for a long time, particularly been racing in Kanaan, and we've been competing against him, and I knew he was a damn good driver. But the thing that I really appreciated about Bobby when we started to working together is he had what I call 360-degree vision. He knew what was going on behind him, what was on the left, what was on the right, what was in front. So his racecraft was superb. You know, he played the long game to win, very good at qualifying, but when it came to racing, he was one of the very, very best.
Yeah. And y'all were in contention here quite a few times.
Yeah, like we came here in 1982, was their second race, and hell, neither of us knew nothing about oval racing, and we qualified 19th. I think there were 50 cars trying to get in the field, and we finished, I think, 9th. So in that very first season as rookies, we won the Michigan 200 on an oval. I remember calling Jim Truman, who wasn't at the race that day. He was out in Aspen skiing, and he said to me, Horne, how'd we do? And I said, well, we won. He said, no, what happened? You guys crashed or something? I said, no, Jim, we won. He said, put Rahal on the phone now. You know, he wasn't convinced until Bobby got on the phone and said we'd actually won an oval race. And, you know, in our first rookie year, we finished second in the championship to Penske.
Yeah.
So I think as a group of people, we took a group of people that really had no experience in IndyCar racing, Jimmy Prescott, Clay Filson, a number of others, and we taught ourselves. And I think that's the beauty sometimes of racing, is if you're inquisitive, you don't give up, you take care of the details, you put a good team together, and you can beat the experts.
Scientific method, that's what I call it. I mean, figure out the questions and then answer them.
Yeah.
And that's what y'all were great at. And like, what do you think, as you look back on now, that y'all hit on there, especially in the mid '80s, that set you apart?
Yeah. I think the very first season was actually kind of too good. So the next two seasons we could only finish third, fourth, or fifth in the championship. But come '86, obviously Jim was pretty ill. I think that incentivized the team subconsciously, and we put a lot of effort into a lot of detail on that car, even though it looked the same, and came here with a really good plan. You might remember we'd go way up the other end of the pit to keep you guys away. We just didn't want to get distracted. We closed the doors on the garage often and just focused on the minutest details. One thing we did that people were shocked at is after we qualified, we went home. Yeah. We went back to Columbus to work on the car, but one of the bigger reasons for that was to refresh the crew, because we'd been here for a couple of weeks already. So they went home with their family. We worked on the car in our own environment, and things were not more relaxed, but it gave them an opportunity to unwind and then come back again really fired up. Yeah. And I think we were one of the few teams to do that.
Yeah. Refreshed, I think is the word. Yeah. Dude, I've always wanted to ask you this, even though this has nothing to do with it. Do you think you could have been a football coach?
Well, I mean,
just for example, what you just went through there about a different way of doing something. Yeah. But the whole idea is for the team arriving, game time, ready to play the game. You understand?
I think being a coach, and I suppose that's really what a team manager is A, finding the right people. Yeah. And we were pretty good at that. B, giving them an environment that satisfies them emotionally, pushing them physically and mentally, but not overdoing it. I think when we had a bad day, we'd sit down and say, that was a really bad day. What did we do wrong? How do we fix it? So that nobody felt under extreme pressure to overperform. We're just watching the pit stop competition out there, and Penske's are the best at it, but under all that pressure, they screwed up. Yeah. So I would always try and defuse, take the energy out of it. Another thing is I try to do is take the emotion out of it, because I always say to Bobby and other drivers, emotion's the enemy. You've got to somehow grab that emotion and just put it to one side and do your job. Yeah. I'm getting goosebumps as you're saying. No, because it sounds like football coach. I mean, Urban Meyer. I mean, Ryan Day at Ohio State now. Jim Tressel. Yeah. That's exactly the way they go about their business. Is the hard. The coach shouldn't be in the limelight. They're the conductor of the orchestra. Yeah, people see them, but they should also be low profile. And I think, I don't know what you think, but I was relatively low profile. I was sometimes hard to get at.
One of the things that sticks out at me about a lot of things was when y'all won Indy, I remember you stepping kind of back to the side off, and you said, I just wanted to stand there. I asked you about it later, and enjoy watching these guys having the day of their life. Yeah. I mean, you're not making this up. This was real. This is the way you approach it.
Satisfaction to me is watching other people achieve their ambitions. That's my biggest satisfaction. I don't like, I'm not a limelight guy. I just, do my job and watch other people succeed.
Yeah, but that's what I always like about you, though. When you were in the limelight, you were ready for it. I mean, I was always impressed by that from like our conversations right now. Just the quotes you came out of your mouth, but the deep thoughts, and also when I'm talking to you all the time, I'm always saying to myself, this is great stuff, but I know he's not telling me everything.
Well, I think you're really good at your job at digging for answers. So let's leave it at that.
Well, I just enjoy everything about auto racing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just the putting a car together to go fast repeatedly is one of the great achievements. Let's move on real quickly. Have you ever allowed yourself to think, if Jim Truman had passed away 11 days after y'all winning Indy in '86, because we know how the environment changed, even where y'all were based back in Columbus, in Hilliard, excuse me, what y'all could have done? I mean,
well, I think if Jim was still alive, I think we would have gone on to even bigger and better things. You know, we probably would have been doing IMSA as well. He was a very determined, passionate man. I know he had plans to build another racetrack. And so we would have been doing bigger and better things. Who knows where, but he was a racer and he just wanted to win at everything he did.
Yeah. Well, fill me in. He wanted to build a racetrack? I mean, he already owned Mid-Ohio, but what was the plan?
He had some land down at St. Louis. I think it was about 500 acres. And he wanted to build a speedway to equal Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That was in his plans.
I never knew that.
Didn't you know that?
No, I never knew that.
Probably not. Bobby knows about it, but he wanted to build a big speedway down there.
Yeah, I knew the people that followed him wanted to build a dirt track up at Mid-Ohio, but that's not exactly the same thing.
Not the kind of the same thing.
Steve, but let's move on. I mean, quickly, because obviously there came a parting of the ways with you and the Truman family, and y'all did your own thing with Tasman Motorsports. Started out with Indy Lights, brought up like Brian Herta, and a couple of guys. I mean, I'm using examples here, not naming everybody, and a couple of guys from Brazil named Helio Castroneves and Tony Kanaan.
Yeah.
First time you met them, did you think, okay, these guys are going to go on and be superstars in this sport? What was your first take?
Before you get to that, when Jim died, it would have been very easy to shut that team down.
Yeah.
So Barbara Truman gave us the opportunity to keep on going, and all credit to her. We got on great, but eventually things changed. She had other priorities, so we moved on, and the team shut down. But starting Tasman, we realized we had to start not at the bottom, but we had to build the infrastructure again. And Indy Lights was the perfect series to do that. Brian Herta was our first driver, and he'd already done one season Indy Lights. We had another guy called Steve Robertson out of England who was mad but extremely fast.
Yeah.
So Brian went on to win the championship. But one other little known fact, we didn't have a lot of money, man. We started that with a little bit of money and a box of beans. So we had to go to every race and there was prize money. So if we didn't finish in the top three, it was going to be tough to get to the next race. But generally, one or two of the drivers would be in the top three, and okay, here's some cash flow. But then we got contacted by Philip Morris in Brazil. They wanted to build the next Emerson Fittipaldi. So we had this thing called the Gong Show, where we went out to Phoenix for 3 days and ran, I think, 7 drivers through the Indy Lights program, very structured. But with Tony, he jumped in that car, and within 10 laps I thought, okay, he's in. He was blindingly fast. When I first met him, we met in the motel, and he was checking in, I was checking in, and I thought, who's that kid there with a big nose? And he could hardly speak English.
Oh, I know.
He could hardly speak English, but put a helmet on and he was really fast. And then Helio got in the car and did about 8 laps, and they were blindingly fast. And then he came in, instead of doing 10 laps, he came in and he jumped out of the car and he sat down sort of outside the tent and he started crying. He was crying. And I went up and said, Helio, what's wrong? He said, I think I've blown it, I can't go on. I said, why not? He said, I got 3 cracked ribs. I had an accident last week at Silverstone, and I got 3 cracked ribs. Well, suddenly, if he can go that fast with 3 cracked ribs, I said, he's in as well. So we kind of went through the motions with the rest of the deal, but
the gong.
The gong rang real early on that one.
Oh my God, that's like Chuck Yeager breaking the speed barrier, going to Mach 1 with busted ribs. I never heard that story either.
Yeah, so they did 2 seasons Indy Lights. Well, first year they won races, but they made too many mistakes, and that was expected. Then the second year, they just fought hammer and tong to win a championship. I remember we had one race at Toronto, and they're both on the front row of the grid. And I got them together before the race, said, guys, whoever leads into that first corner must lead the first lap. Don't try and outbrake each other at the end of the long straightaway. Well, that was like a red rag. So sure enough, they tried to outbrake each other at the end of the back straight. And they ran into everything that was standing, concrete walls, each other, and they took, they took 7 wheels off the car, out of 8. And I remember them walking down the pit lane together with their helmets in their hands. They were they could see me in the distance, and they knew I was coming, so they turned around and went off to the side back to the trailer. But they're still good buddies, and fierce competitors, and I'm so proud and pleased with what they've done, because I was there at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think I sensed what they were able to achieve.
Yeah. But in the meantime, also, you end up getting the Honda engine in 1995.
Yeah.
The Rahal team.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember me coming to you, but Bobby had told me to go tell you, hey, you know what? We're not going to be able to continue, but Honda's going to get it right. And they did. And so you show up here with the Honda engine and Firestone tires. Yeah. Scott Goodyear. Yeah. Obviously, you had you had 1 or 2 other drivers.
We had Andre Rivera. Rookie,
yeah. Scott Goodyear is leading the race.
Yeah.
Supposedly, illegally passes the pace car, which is, I'm sure you would like to protest that until this day, with restart with 8 laps left or whatever it was.
8 laps to go,
Do you ever think back on that moment, because y'all were disqualified?
Yeah.
Never forget that like it was 5 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Do you ever think back on that moment and how, wow, that would have really changed some things, or would it?
I don't think it would have changed some things. I think we were at the right place at the right time to get involved with Honda. Yeah. They were immensely supportive. And I just, when I got the call from Robert Clark at Honda that they wanted to talk, I thought, they've never ever not succeeded at anything. So the timing might be quite brilliant, and it was a fantastic relationship. When Scott got disqualified, my biggest feeling was, I was disappointed, but I was so disappointed for the effort that Scott had put in, the team, because at one stage I looked up at that pylon and it said 31 and 32, and we were running 1-2.
Yeah.
And we're a rookie team.
Yeah.
Hadn't been here before. Obviously the engine was good, but we did a really good job with the setup on the cars. So I have no regrets about it. We're leaving the track, and Christine and I are driving back to Columbus, and we were pretty down, and I was upset for the guys, and we're driving past the local hospital here, and I said, Christine, we're disappointed because we didn't achieve what we wanted to do in our sport, but in that hospital there are people dying. Yeah. Let's not get too wrapped up in our own self needs.
Yeah.
So and we went on to win Honda's first IndyCar race with Andre. Had a great season. So I think regret's the wrong word.
Yeah. Man, we could talk for 6 hours, but I want to keep this where somebody won't just tune out. But I'm not kidding you. I've got a million thoughts in my head, as you all know. Let's just jump ahead right now to today.
Yeah.
Helio Castroneves is in the Indianapolis 500 still, going for his 5th victory. Yeah. Tony Kanaan has declared this is his last Indy 500. Yeah. I know you've spoken with him, I'm sure, but what a special guy he turned out to be. Yeah. He ended up speaking English a lot better than Helio. Yeah. That's my big example. No, Helio seems to speak English about the way he did the first time I met him, but that's okay. Everybody can root for him, but that's your legacy. That's part of your legacy, isn't it?
I think legacy is the wrong word. I think the fact that the three of us were together, the stars were aligned, Tim. The stars were aligned. I said to Tony when I saw him today, I said, Tony, you're 48 now. When I first met you, I was 46, right? So keep that in perspective.
That's pretty cool, though. They both went on to win this race, though. You got, and Helio.
I knew they would. It was a no-brainer to me. Get them in the right team. They were going to win the race.
But tell me this. We talked about Bobby, but why did you know? Besides besides the time in Phoenix, do the special guys have something about them that's palpable, that you can see, other than they're putting their foot down?
I think there's 3 basics. 1, they're bloody fast. 2, they don't make a lot of mistakes. Bobby, I can't think of a time he made a mistake actually on the track. And 3, they have a hunger for the engineering side of it. They want to learn about what makes cars tick, setup, etc., etc. So those, for me, are the 3 things. Obviously, Bobby was really good at the commercial side, and that helped a lot because, as I say to a lot of people, race cars are incinerators. You shovel money at them and they burn it.
Yeah. There's money coming out the bag, not exhaust.
No, that's right. It's not methanol.
It's like owning an airplane, right?
It's used dollar bills, yeah.
Hey, let's jump real quickly. Man, it's such a pleasure running into you. It's crazy. You still fly. You have a Cessna 182 back there in New Zealand. I think you got up to bigger equipment at one point, but now you're enjoying the pleasure parts of your life because you're in the low 70s, right?
I'm 73 now. Yeah.
I'm 69. That's how both of us.
I'm 73, going on 53. Yeah.
Yeah. I was the age of my middle kid when I first met you. Who is now? But anyway, but the bottom line is, you're still involved. I mean, give us an idea of like the foundation you're involved in, and also bringing along talent.
Yeah. Well, we sold the team to Jerry Forsyth in I think it was 2000. And then what happened then is I said, okay, that's it, I'm done. But the phone started ringing, and I got a lot of unique things. I did some consulting in motorsports. I did a little bit of work for Honda, and then Tony called me and said, could you come to the races with me? He was racing for KV, and just sort of take a look at things. So I spent a season hanging around with Tony at the racetrack, which was fun. Then we'd bought a home in New Zealand, which is where I grew up. And Christine and I moved back there in 2012, and I thought, well, that's it again. But they had a really good touring car series down there, so we started reviving Tasman there in a semi-pro series, ran that for 3 years, won some races, and then I got another call, which was kind of out of the blue from Australia to do a role which was called Chairman of the Supercars Commission. Now, Supercars is a very big professional motorsport series in Australia, so I went to the dark side. I became an official, right? Yeah,
that is definitely.
And
for you.
Yeah, but it was really, really interesting looking at how the sport is administered, particularly on the technical side. And I did that for 7 years until COVID came along and I couldn't travel. Then I had another call from a wealthy guy in New Zealand named Tony Quinn, who was a motorsports enthusiast, and he was sponsoring a lot of drivers, but he didn't know which one and what one. So he said, Steve, could you sort of help me with that? And I said, Tony, why don't we set up a foundation where there'll be 5 trustees, all different expertises, and if you want to spend some money, we'll help you spend the money, but we'll do it in a regimented way. So we've established some really good scholarships right out of karting into Formula Ford, into the local Toyota Racing Series down there, which is an intense series. And then if kids are good enough, we'll take them offshore. So we've got a pathway in New Zealand to bring more Kiwis over. There's 3 of them in IndyCar now. We've invaded. We're worse than Brazilians now in IndyCar. I was just up at Road America now with a young Kiwi kid, Callum Hedge, who's racing Formula Regional up there. Won 3 out of 3 races, pole positions. And the big thing about that is there's a really great prize at the end from HPD, where if you win that series here in the US, you go to Japan to race Super Formula, which is 1 step below Formula 1, and it's paid. So, we've got a pathway going for young Kiwis. And I've always liked young drivers and watching them grow and moulding them and having fun with them. So that's what I do now. Yeah,
and you always wondered, man, and still wonder, who's a great driver? You know, Jesse Owens got to the Olympics and won 4 Olympic medals just because he was faster than everybody.
Yeah.
You know, there were a lot of hurdles in his way, but the fact that he was just faster than everybody was undeniable.
Yeah.
But in auto racing, you just feel like maybe there's some talent that didn't get that break, or because financially it is such a burden, right?
There's plenty of talent out there, but providing them the tools is key. So we focus on, obviously, their outright speed. You don't get into this program without the outright speed, but I call it the 3-legged stool. You've got to be really good on the racetrack. You've got to, as soon as you can, understand the commercial side of the business, because again, as I said, it incinerates money. And the third thing is engineering. You've got to learn how this thing you're sitting in works, because if you can become more of your own engineer, then you can get more out of the car when you get professional working with really good people. So, you know, like I say, it's a three-legged stool for me.
Yeah, that's what Bobby Rahal once said to one of his drivers who was griping about the setup. He goes, well, it's your car.
Yeah.
Tell us, you know, what are you feeling? You know, I mean, have some knowledge of what you're doing. I think that guy was only there 1 year. Maybe I'm wrong. Hey, last question. You also do, this is what intrigues me. It's probably the most interesting part of this whole thing because I know all the other story. You do some videos on YouTube with flying and stuff?
I've got a little video YouTube channel where I like recording my flights around New Zealand, so they're nothing fancy. So I put them up there and people look at them. And,
why did you decide to do that? I mean,
I'm ready for posterity for me because one day I'm not going to be flying. So when I'm sitting wherever I'm sitting and you know I got nothing else to do, I can pull that up and say, hey, that looks like me.
Notice no bounce. There was no bounce on that landing.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Horne, thanks for joining me, my man.
Well, I'm so glad I bumped into you, Tim. Thank you very much.